I profited 12K in one day using a similar strategy to the one I'm about to show you in this video. That method has since been patched, but the good news is I found a workaround. It's not only the best bet you can possibly make for Super Bowl 58, but is also the most fun way to potentially cash up to 40x your money. I'm making this play on Underdog Fantasy because that is the only site that will give me this specific high payout for the group of players I'm about to show you. For all you users that are already on Price Picks or any traditional sportsbooks, I'll show you exactly why it doesn't work there on those other sites once I go through this example. Okay, so you saw in the intro how the strategy I used for that 12K was taking two players from the same team in the same direction for passing and receiving yards. If Mahomes is throwing a lot of yards, it's likely his main targets, Kelsey and Rice, are also going over their respective receiving yard totals. So as I said, eventually Underdog and all other DFS sites caught on to this and nerfed it to the point where it's terrible. Traditional sportsbooks like DraftKings and Bet365, whatever it may be, already had these payouts nerfed, because obviously when you're taking two players from the same team, especially in football, payouts should be nerfed respective to that correlation between those players. Now, instead of being 20x like we used to be paid on Underdog, we are being paid 12x for the exact same slips that would have cashed me 20x and had cashed me that 12K back in the day when it was not nerfed. But what Underdog did differently compared to all their competitors is they will actually increase payouts now if you're taking players in the opposite direction in the NFL. No other competitor is doing this, and I think this is where they're slipping up, where we could get a little bit of an advantage here. You could see here when I take both Mahomes and Purdy to go more than their passing totals, and a couple of the main receivers to go less than the receiving totals, we get a 42x payout. But wait, that is not a big enough boost. As much as 42x seems like a high payout, that's actually terrible for this group of players. If Mahomes and Purdy are both going over the totals, it's very unlikely that a lot of the main receivers are all going to go under, especially if we're taking three in this case. And I can prove that by showing the exact payout that you'll get on Bet365, which is another sports book, on their same game parlay. You could do the same thing on DraftKings. You're probably going to get around 76x your money. So how could this be a profitable strategy if I just showed you you're getting ripped off on this? Well, what Underdog does, and sportsbooks do not, is classify each receiver as the exact same payout boost, which means if I take Kelsey, who's projected about 75 yards, and I swap him out for Richie James, which is another wide receiver, but not nearly as correlated with Mahomes. I mean, he could go the whole game without getting one reception, but still I get this boosted payout up to 42x. You could see how we could start to exploit this because they're classifying each wide receiver as the exact same correlation with Mahomes, which is just not true. They're paying us way too much for matching up Mahomes with a receiver who will not get as much action as Rice, Kelsey, etc. throughout the whole game. So this is where we could exploit the system and grab receivers who are not as correlated with the main quarterbacks. We look at Sanfran. Purdy has four main targets in Ayuk, Debo, CMC, and Kittle. Yet, if we swap Kittle with Jennings in this entry, we still get this boosted payout. The boosted payouts will only occur if you're taking either wide receivers or tight ends in the opposite direction of their quarterbacks. Taking CMC will not boost our payout, but it also will not shrink our payout, which is something we're going to exploit later in this video. Lastly, if I swap Rice with Justin Watson or Noah Gray, I still receive that boosted payout up to 42x for players who are not at all strongly associated with the quarterbacks clearing their passing totals. Now, all you need is a shootout game with passes to the main receivers, and you are rewarded with 42x your money. That is a great way to watch the Super Bowl and an even better way to cash. Now, remember how I showed how the previous entry with all the main receivers only paid 42x compared to sportsbooks who were paying 76x. Now, if we compare this payout with this group of receivers to sportsbooks' same game parlay feature, you only get 31x your money. But why is that? Because sportsbooks know that these receivers are not associated with their quarterbacks clearing their totals in the same way that Kelsey, Rice, and Kittle might be. So they are paying you less for it. Essentially, Underdog should not be paying us the same whether we take Kelsey or Richie, or Kittle or Jennings, but they are. I've been beating Underdog for the past year and a half, so my max limit on this is $100. I'm personally going to be maxing this out because I know this will happen 1 in 30 times, yet it pays 42x my money. Of course, you could see how that makes it profitable. If you're new to Underdog, you can actually play this slip with house money by signing up with my code ODDSJUICE, where they will double your deposit up to $100, which is a 100% instant ROI. They'll also allow you to take this next slip that pays 25x your money and should hit around 1 out of 10 times. Now let's get on to the next play that you'll benefit from by signing up to Underdog and getting this free square on Patrick Mahomes. Of course, he's going to cash more than half a passing yard, and we're going to incorporate this into our slip to get a nice 25xer. Once you get the free square from signing up with code ODDSJUICE, there's 3 ways to use it based on your risk tolerance. All methods will give boosted payouts because we're leveraging that edge that we get from taking Purdy more passing yards and Jennings less receiving yards, but only the last one pays 25x. So here's the first method. Keep Purdy and Jennings as usual and throw in Mahomes free square for a 7.62x payout. For reference, a sportsbook would pay 4.2x, of course, because Mahomes is free. This is low risk, low reward, but we could boost this even more. Remember how I said running backs will not negatively affect the payouts, but it's not entirely true. I can't take CMC more receiving yards as there will be a negative shift, but I can take more on his targets without a shift. If CMC clears his targets, it is likely that is a more pass heavy game where Purdy is naturally getting more passing yards. It's not exact, but it definitely makes more sense to say CMC will get more targets when Purdy gets more passing yards rather than saying CMC will get less targets. This pays a modest 12x, and while sportsbooks don't have target props, something similar would be CMC receptions, which only pays 6.5x. Let's take this a step further and truly max out the potential of this entry. If we agree that this will be a more pass-heavy game with a lot of receptions and offense, we can also expect more points and more field goals in this game. This is where we end the entry off with the more on Jake Moody's 1.5 field goals made for a final payout of 25x. For our last reference to the sportsbooks, this would only pay 11x. So we're making double than we would on a sportsbook because we're leveraging this Mahomes promo as well as leveraging that association between Jennings and Purdy. Note that PrizePicks also has this free square on Mahomes, yet the exact same entry only pays 9x. So this is truly the best possible bet this Super Bowl. Now once Sunday comes and you cash one of these slips, you'll have enough to buy the premium Discord where I send all my PrizePicks and underdog slips, and I'm up 350 units in the past 11 weeks.